So when it comes to learning jiu-jitsu, the most important thing is being able to actually apply it when you're training or competing. So we can break learning down to like technical learning, where you're learning the details of individual techniques or moves. We can also look at systematic training, which is where you're looking at systems of moves, like different branches. So you do this, you have different moves according to how your opponent counters or reacts. And then also things like principle-based training. Given that a lot of us right now are stuck here watching stuff online, reading, drilling stuff, but without the ability to go out and actually test these out and build that kind of muscle memory, I want to talk specifically about principle training today. So what does that mean? Essentially what we're looking at is taking a common principle, something that applies throughout a certain position or series of positions, or even in the game of jiu-jitsu as a whole. And when we're sparring, especially when we're trying to integrate these principles, right, it's easier to keep a small thing in mind rather than every single little detail. So let's take defending a guard pass, for example. Lots of different ways technically to do that. A lot of principles remain the same, and systems where you will do certain things to counter, like you'll have a system for De La Hiva, you'll have a system for X guard, butterfly, close guard, so on and so forth, where you start linking and moves together, all of which is very, very important. But what we're talking about with principles here is like, what do you need to bear in mind in each individual position? What are the key things to remember, right? So to break it down, let's have a look at my opponent here. Easiest way to look at this is, say for example, if I was working a armbar from mount, right, I could look at it technically, right? So here it would be, I would set my grips a certain way, I would do certain things with my body, I'd position myself in a certain way, and these are my technical components. Right? So that's an idea of what I mean by technical learning. Systematic learning here would be, right, okay, so what I'm going to do here is look at threatening the neck, first part of my system here, which is going to give me a series of responses here. According to whatever he does, like if he brings his arm up here, I'm going to isolate and trap that arm to start moving into my next branch of attacks here. If he does nothing, right, this is where we start moving back into the technical aspect here, where I'm thinking about keeping things technically sound, but the system applies with what does he start doing here. So if he starts to counter by defending, locking his arms together, then I have to respond, and my system should have I should have a series of responses according to that, right? Principles here are things to bear in mind, right, which would apply to all the systems and techniques. So things like principle would be look to isolate the arm, right, here, keep the arm away from the body, keep him from linking his arms. Principle would be bug the neck to expose the arms. If he's defending the arms, switch to the neck, so on and so forth, right? So each of these different ways of learning is very, very important, right? Technical details, super, super important. They're going to give you a technical advantage over your opponents. Systems are really, really important too, because it allows you to switch between different techniques and put those principles into action. Principles, right, at the moment are something that we should be focusing on a lot when we're stuck at home, because they are things that are relatively easy to remember, right, and it's not so contingent on what your opponent is doing. So if I could say, like, I'm here, I'm looking to attack my opponent, I need to be thinking about certain principles. What are the principles of mount? I need to keep tight, but I also don't want to be like keeping all my weight on my opponent so that he can easily bridge me or move me. I want to be able to spread my weight, drop my weight on him, keep him isolated. Right? I also want to be thinking about attacking like the arms, so I need to think about isolating arms. There's always a principle. If he's in tight here, right, then I have to start thinking about breaking his defences down. If I never give him that opportunity, right, by keeping the arm isolated, then see how it moves me to a different part of like my system of attacks. But even if I don't have a system of attacks, what I already have is an isolated arm, which gives me the opportunity to start attacking this arm, the neck, whatever here. Right? Other principles we could look at would be, what Danaher refers to as like double jeopardy or double trouble. Right? If I'm attacking his neck, it's going to start bringing his arms into play. Danaher teaches that principle as part of a system. Right? So if you attack arms, right, it's going to give. If you attack the neck, is going to make the arms more vulnerable, so on and so forth. If I attack his arm here, and he starts to focus on it, so common would be me, say, attacking a key lock here, he starts bringing his arm over to defend, he forgets his neck, which allows me to attack this. So my principle here is attack the neck to expose the arms, or vice versa. Right, so those are examples of principles, systems, techniques coming into play, right, all working together with each other. So there's no right or wrong way to learn jiu-jitsu. Systems, techniques, principles, they all work together. Very, very important thing to understand. But right now, or in general, if you don't have a lot of mat time or you can't learn something and then put it into place straight away, it's very, very important to keep these principles in mind. And also I found, especially at white belt, blue belt, learning these principles was the biggest game changer for me, because when I was rolling, I would find that it would be very, very hard for me to remember like a sequence of of moves, like that would make up a system, or all the technical details that I would need in each position. When I was rolling, I'd usually find I'd be able to keep maybe like a couple of things in mind at any one time. Usually it's just me going, like while I'm rolling, right? So if I could keep one or two principles in mind in each position, right? For example, in close guard, break their posture, right? Keep that in mind here, keep my grips posture, right? That would be all I could think about. Everything else would kind of go from there. If I'm working to pass, I could be thinking about, okay, control my opponent, whatever, try and get outside the line of his legs, get around his frame. If I'm looking to defend a guard pass, I'm thinking about keeping my hips in alignment, square on with my opponent, so on and so forth. Bottom side control, keeping my arms in, keeping my head safe. Bottom half guard, protecting my head, getting on my side. Top half guard, keeping my opponent flat, hips flat on the ground, looking for my underhook. All these different things are examples of principles that will help you move further along in the system of moves you're doing, and they are an example of a technical detail which has like much higher consequence than like say where exactly you put your grip. Right? There are lots of different ways, for example, to complete a knee slice pass here. If I'm slicing through, my principle is like to take an underhook, right? That's partly a technical detail. If you dial it back down, like there's lots of different ways to complete this. Talked before about taking his crossface near collar grip here with the sleeve, right? And as we're addressing the same principle with a different technical means here. So my underhook here, to stop him taking his underhook and getting to my back when I pass his legs, right? I can achieve the same thing here, right, by cross-facing, keeping pressure down. Here, it's impossible for him to turn up because my hand posted on the floor, cross-face, and my arm pulling up stops him turning up towards me, right? I can do this same thing by posting an underhook here, getting a deep underhook, or even with a collar grip here and an elbow wedge on his body. All these things, right, are stopping him turning up into me. Technically all different, all part of a system, like at the same point, which is when you're looking to finish that pass or complete that pass. It's very, very important to figure out all these little details. So the principle there would be, don't let your opponent turn up into you and get to your back once you've completed your guard pass. Technical detail would be like how you're doing it, whether it's underhook, crossface, or collar grip. Right? You can take it even further and break it down technically into where you're gripping, which collar, right? Where you're applying pressure with your elbow. It's more technical detail, right? And systematically, this would be what point during this pass, like, you know, when you're in this guard passing situation, what time do you apply this, right? So keep in mind all those things and start thinking about principles, like areas where you can pull back and go, okay, what is the key thing in this moment? Right? What would make the biggest difference to my game? And it's not usually learning a new move, it's learning what to apply and when and where. Okay. Hopefully that's not too cerebral or philosophical. Made a huge difference to my game, and hopefully you guys will take that into account too.